Welcome to Smart Career Planning Podcast. I'm really excited about our podcast today. I have Albert with me. I would love to do a little introduction of him, but I'm going to have him do that himself. And then I'm going to provide a light introduction or context to this particular podcast. Hey, Albert, so would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what do you do and what led you to this point in a career?
Yeah. So my name is Albert. I am a technology marketing manager for a marketing consulting firm here in Southern California, as well as the founder of Albert's List, a job search community with over 27,000 people and, helping people get hired in cities like Seattle, all of California, Vegas, Chicago, Austin, New York City, and beyond. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Good. So now that's a little bit of an introduction. I'm going to backpedal a little bit then. For
Sure.
listeners, here's the background information. Every time when I prepare for a podcast, it is not like I put this together a couple of weeks prior. Sometimes it's months prior. I have to start reaching out to people. I have to start figuring out what kind of topics I want to talk about. So I decided to reach out to people in my network and see maybe what topics people may be interested in. And so that's how I came across Albert. And I remembered meeting him a couple of years ago at this event called The Art of Active Networking. And one thing that really struck me about Albert was how not just outgoing and how outgoing he was, but how helpful he was as a professional, that he really brought with him a mindset when he attended that networking event. And I walked away feeling, wow, this person is incredible. I need to get in touch with him. So with that said, how do you prepare yourself when you walk into a networking event?
Yeah, so I think it's several steps. So the first one is understanding what I want to get out of it. So as you know, every single event has sort of a different purpose to it, different theme to it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you go without any real purpose at all, with the exception of meeting people. And you just want to know what people are up to, what people are working on, what trends are going on, and you go there to talk. And so that's the first one. Another way I look at it is looking at going to Eventbrite, meetups, seeing what events are out there, and if those correspond with anything that I'm interested in, I'll sign up. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to know before you go to a networking event what your elevator pitch and what it is that you're going to provide is. So an elevator pitch, as your audience may or may not know, is a 30-second introduction to yourself to another individual. It's meant to pretty much survive an elevator ride when you go up with somebody. And this can be anything from why you're there at a particular event to who you are, what you do, because everybody wants to know that. And in addition to that, knowing what your value is and what you're going with. And so for me, when I go to any networking event, depending on whether it's my professional side or whether I'm looking for recruiters or job seekers to join my community, it's a framework of value, because one thing that I think that people don't normally get right when it comes to networking is that it's a very selfish exercise for a lot of people. They go in, it's me, and maybe for 30 seconds they care about what you do, but they don't really care once they realize, they're not in my demographic, I'm just going to move on. But in general, right, I think the lesson that a lot of people learn from networking is that there's something to offer everybody, no matter, who you run into, because you never know who other people know. Business and networking is really a function of who like and trust. And so if people have those three factors down and they get to know you and you come from being able to give to them, mm-hmm. and you go in with that personality and that mindset, I think you could be really successful in networking.
Good. You touched upon something really great, elevator pitch. How
Sure.
do you have a different elevator pitch every time when you go to a different event, or how do you, what's the exercise someone should have when they go into that mode or trying to create an elevator pitch?
Yeah, I think that I think that when I go to any event, it's pretty standard. So if I'm on the job hunt, for example, I'll probably say, my name is Albert and I'm a marketing manager in the technology space, and I'm looking for my next opportunity in product marketing. And then you get pretty specific. I think being specific is really, really, really key. For new grads, it's harder. For seasoned professionals, it's a lot easier because they have a track record that they can work off of. And I think your elevator pitch is also dependent on your audience, right? I think that networking is a little bit like marketing, where you have to really fit what your pitch is to your audience so that you can have a good idea of what you're saying. And so when it comes to an event, I would say that it comes down to, it depends on who I speak to over there. If it's a person who says, "Oh yeah, I'm a recruiter with so and so firm," then if I'm looking for a job, I offer the fact that I'm looking for a job, and then I also follow up with the fact that I'm looking for recruiters to join my group. On the other hand, if I do have a job and I'm just going to a networking event to meet other people, I either offer up my side project as what I do for a living, or I talk about the industry. So it's very conversationally specific. And so I think in order to really master that part, you just have to listen very carefully to what people are saying and know how to pivot when it comes to the conversation that you're having.
Good. Now, how about event selection? I remember when I was attending a lot of events, for those who have a full-time job, pretty much the only time you're available to attend a networking event and expand your network is at night. And there's so many different events at night. How do you go about selecting one that's right for you?
Right, yeah. So I think I've thought a little bit about this, and I like to think about where somebody is within their career journey to go to that kind of networking event. So I look at myself where I might have been 6 years ago, new graduate, not sure what I wanted to do with my life. I call this like the survival phase. And I think in this situation, you sometimes just go to any networking event to go to any networking event because you just need to meet people. You need to build a muscle, and you need to get used to like building that muscle. And so talking to strangers, if you're like an engineer and they're a real estate agent or they're a financial services person, is actually perfect because all you need to do is get that conversation out of the way. Doesn't matter that you may not talk to them ever again. You just need to show up and you just need to talk.
Yeah.
I think when you get into the area where you're more interested in a purpose, that you start really being selective with your networking events. And so, for example, if you're a marketing person, you go to an event that's sponsored by the American Marketing Association. Or if you're an engineer, you go to one of those societies. And you go to their mixers because you're going to hang around people who are recruiters, who are the same profession as you, and who are really fighting towards a similar path in terms of what you're interested in doing. And so those are great networking events to get more immersed in your community. And then I would say the final two types of networking events is when you're at the point of your life where maybe you are spending time with, where you're a leader and or an executive, and you want to hang out with mastermind groups, or you want to go to mixers where you hang out with other executives as well. And those are the types of people that basically have the same job title, they have the same level of experience, so the conversations are relatable. Or if you're the person at that point that's going to a small business who owns a business, then you go to like a business mixer. And so, for me, event selection is very dependent on where you are in your career. And really, the sooner I think you get to deciding what it is that you want to do and what you want to explore, moving from general networking events where it's just a smattering of 30 different industries in one group into one networking event where it's 30 people that all do one thing similarly is actually one of the most liberating things that you can ever figure out for yourself.
Good. Yeah. Now, how about leaving an impression? That's just something about you, right? It's years ago, and I still remember you. I remember that night when I met with you and how just altruistic you were. I'm sure you didn't walk in thinking, I'm just going to impress the hell out of everyone when I attend this event. I'm sure that's not what you were thinking, but that's what ended up happening. Do you have any, kind of exercise or any suggestions for people how to really work the room and how to really leave a strong, great impression when they attend a great networking event?
Yeah, so if you've been to a networking event before that they're showing up to again and again, something that happens monthly, I think it's always important for people to to introduce people to other people at events. For an event like Artifact Networking, for example, you have people who show up who are regulars, and then you have people who are new in town and they want to come to the event. And so I think one of the biggest challenges of networking events is that we all live in our own silos. People go to networking events, they don't know anybody else, and then they move from person to person, and there's really no like interconnectivity. If you're a person that goes to a networking event and you meet a person and then you walk around and then you meet another person and you have that opportunity to connect one and one together, it's really good because it helps you stand out. You remember names, you remember details. And I think in an era where everybody remembers their details on their phone or whichever, if you're able to remember something that somebody told you like 5 minutes ago and apply that into an introduction, I think it really stands out because it just shows how personal you are.
Great.
I think the second tip that really stands out among people is that everybody goes to a networking event expecting to hear what you do. It's a great crutch question because nobody knows how to start a conversation these days. And the way that I start my conversations with people at networking events when I'm at my best is, how can I help you? Because nobody goes to a networking event expecting to ask somebody how they can be helped. They're expecting to pitch themselves to other people to get the help, and it's kind of like selling themselves through that event, through whatever event they go to. And so if you come from a point of generosity, and I think everybody can because they have something to offer, then it also really helps. Yeah.
Good. Now, if someone wants to walk away with it or maybe begin applying when they go to the next networking event, how does that look like? They go into an event and there are like 100 people there. Do you just walk in asking people, hey, what can I do for you? Or what are some practical questions people can walk in with so they can feel successful?
Yeah, so I think a first question to ask before even you get to the how can I help you point is, instead of asking what it is that you do, is what brings you here tonight? Because everybody's at a networking event for a specific reason. And some people, unfortunately, also go to networking events for no reason at all, which I sometimes wonder because I know in the Bay Area and beyond, some networking events cost money. And so if you're spending $15 just to go to somewhere for the sake of going somewhere, it's kind of weird. But I like to start with what brings you here tonight, because then you get to listen to purpose, right? And then from purpose, I think you start understanding where you can direct that conversation. One mindset that I've developed over the years in going to networking events is that as soon as they tell me the purpose, I start thinking about who I know and sort of where you can direct that conversation to. So if somebody says, I'm here to help grow my business tonight, then my thought process goes to, okay, what's your business? And then I think 2 or 3 steps down the line, I'm thinking, okay, is there somebody that I know that I could help them hire for this business, or somebody that I know that would be able to consult for this business? On the other hand, if they say they're looking for a job tonight, you ask them what kind of job they're looking for and what recruiters you might know. Or if they're new in town, then you ask, what brings them to town, if they're interested in hearing some places they can go, and so forth. So it's all about, I think, networking, as much as people think it's about talking and being strategic in conversations and being really extroverted, is actually more about being able to listen and just stand there and hold your presence in their presence and be able to pay attention to the small details so that they can get out of it what they want to get out of it, and ultimately give you what you want to get out of it. Because one thing I've realized in networking events over the last 7 years is the more you give to other people, the more that other people will want to give back to you, even if you're not looking for anything.
Yeah, absolutely. How about follow-up then? What's the cadence like? Is it the day after? Doesn't even matter? And what should people write in the follow-up notes?
Yeah, so hopefully in your follow-up, you remembered what conversation you had. You remembered what it is that maybe their ask was, and I think you could do it anywhere between that night to really any time the very next day, to almost even a week after. And I think you position the conversation as a follow-up phone call to see if there's anything else that you can help them with, or anything else that they may be interested in talking about. I know that sometimes you may meet somebody that you're not sure, but you're not sure how you may work with them, and that's usually an opportunity to also follow up and just say like, and offer your LinkedIn as a point of connection. So maybe they may know somebody that they can help you with, and so. Follow up is good because a lot of people go to events with a lot of where they get a lot of business cards, and then they end up coming home and they toss those business cards in the drawer, never to see from them again. And it's just kind of a waste of time for everybody when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. How about virtually? There especially with a place like LinkedIn, there's so many people trying to reach out to you, whether it be looking for a job or, on the other end, as a job seeker, then reaching out to you and someone asking you, "Hey, can you help me find a job?" What advice do you have for them? I know for me sometimes, or actually better yet, I remember one time someone I've never met, I've never worked with at all, just connected with me and then thanked me for connecting with her, and then she just asked me, what can I do for you? Let me know what I can do for you. I'm like, whoa, that's really broad. I don't know what you can do for me. So, I mean, that's, to me, it's not the best way to connect with someone on LinkedIn. What recommendations do you have for emerging professionals who's still trying to figure out how to use LinkedIn and how to network through LinkedIn? What suggestions do you have for them?
Yeah, so people like talking about themselves, and I think that informational interviews are the best way for new graduates who are about to head onto the job market to get an idea of what's out there for them. We're in good economic times right now, and it's a really great opportunity to just meet people, talk to them, get to know them. And so I would say that for new grads who are on the job market, getting into LinkedIn is a good first step, and then reaching out to your first degree connections for second degree connections and introductions that way. And so I would say that, the way that people should do it is they should introduce themselves over LinkedIn by saying, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm a recent graduate in these several fields, and I'm interested in learning more about what it is that you do, because I have some sort of passion, some sort of interest, or just some sort of curiosity." I think being curious goes a long way. And I would like to have 20 minutes of your time over the phone sometime in the next several weeks to discuss with you what it is that you do and perhaps what it is that I can do to get into that field.
Yeah.
And so informational interviewing is good because it comes off as non-threatening. It's purely a conversation. Networking in itself is a conversation. I think a lot of people have struggled with that because they think that they need to have a really, really clear-cut strategy, which they don't. And the really good thing about informational interviews is that it allows you to really get to know somebody without the pressure of, say, asking for a job. And usually when the conversation does go well, as I've experienced and as many others have experienced, you may get the conversation from somebody else saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. If you sound like a really good, sharp young graduate, if you find a job within my company that you're interested in applying for, let me know and I'll pass you on." And so that's actually one of the greater benefits of informational interviewing, because if you like what you hear and they like what they hear, it could turn into that job opportunity for sure.
Yeah, that is totally true. I remember that was a couple of years ago, though. Someone did exactly that with me. He was about to graduate, and he said to me, "Hey, I already have a job lined up, but I'm really trying to help a friend here." So this wingman approach, I guess. I'm trying to help a friend here. Would you mind spending 10, 15 minutes with me on the phone and have some questions for you? And that was a really memorable 10 to 15 minutes because this person had great questions and very clever, smart, really thoughtful. And then a year later, even though I didn't have a job right then and there for him or for the friend, I still remember that person. And I still remember that person to this day because just by looking at someone's LinkedIn profile, it is a very shallow interactions and very shallow impression. But if you can get in any way, shape, or form, if you can get on the phone with a recruiter or a hiring manager, that is one way to really create that chemistry. And that can, kind of like what you said, you may not have a job right then and there, but if the impression is great, maybe they can even create a job opportunity for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the more underrated things about networking is that a lot of people think that they need to start networking when they're out of a job. And really the best time to network is when you're in a job, because that's where you're able to cultivate and build those relationships that may end up helping you later on. I know that there are, plenty of times in my life where I found myself out of a job and I'm able to reach out to an entire stable of recruiters that I've built up through building Albert's List. And from there, I'm able to really, the conversations that I have, they're, a lot more familiar. People are willing to sit down. They're willing to introduce you to other people. And it's that sense of familiarity because, I think the same way works in networking as it does when it comes to job applying and walking into an interview. The more desperate you sound, the more that you end up turning other people off. Mm-hmm. And so if there's that level of familiarity and they know you and they understand you and they know who you are, then it really helps the conversation along.
Good. Now, Albert's List, tell us more about that. What's that list about? And
mm-hmm. Yeah, so I started Albert's List back in March of 2013. It is a job search community that has grown pretty much from scratch without really, pretty organically from zero to about 28,000 people. And we bring together job seekers, recruiters, hiring managers, career service providers such as yourself, mm-hmm. and people who are just interested in networking with the broader scope of other individuals to really help build job searches and accelerate job searches. It is my belief today that the reason why people are stuck in job searches for so long is not because they don't know what they want to do. I think a lot of people do know what they want to do, and I also think a lot of people have no idea what they want to do. I think the reason why their job searches are long and frustrating and annoying for a lot of people is because they're unable to find the right resources that help them close that gap. And for me, Albert's List helps close that gap because you get direct access to recruiters, you see job listings, you get to network with other people, all from the comfort of your own computer. And you get to learn about the job search while you're at it too. We have a lot of people who ask for advice. They ask for, a lot of consultation around, what do I do about getting laid off? What do I do around how I write a cover letter? Who can edit my resume? Who can review my resume? And I think that all these things really at the end of the day are, basic questions that folks should know, but because there's this gap between higher education, general education, and the job world today, there needs to be more platforms and more people out there who help close that gap. And because and really, it really mirrors how I started my own career, because when I graduated, I remember, I graduated 7 years ago next month. I remember starting off the next Monday after graduation, just really lost. Mm-hmm. I had wondered how I got there, and maybe, I had a little bit of that millennial entitlement, thinking that I was owed a job because I had gone through college, and, nobody owes anybody anything. For the first 3-4 years out of, my career, I was incredibly disengaged. I'll totally admit that. And I frustrated a lot of bosses along the way, mm-hmm. unfortunately. And I think that having resources like Albert's List helps lessen the frustration for pretty much everybody, because mm-hmm. When people learn how their whole job search works and how careers work and how, everybody fits in within a corporate structure, it really helps people understand how to position themselves in interviews, network, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. Now, 2 different set of questions then. Number 1, how do people get to that list or join your list? Yeah,
so they can go in Facebook right now and they can type Albert's Job Listings and Referrals. and a series of groups will come up. They can join. The one with the largest group largest amount of people covers the Bay Area. And then there are several other smaller groups. And yeah, they can go from there and post an introduction, say hello to people that say hello, and get connected with all the resources there. We just actually revamped our recruiter list this week within the community, and we have over 86 recruiters that span everything from HR, administrative, legal to marketing, sales, and creative to IT and technical, as well as corporate recruiters who work in-house for their respective organizations.
Nice. Now, the other question then is, kind of like what you said, when you first graduated from school, you felt very disengaged with your manager or even in the community in general. What advice, or if someone is more self-aware and they realize that, I'm at that stage where I'm really disengaged and feeling a little lost, how do they find that meaning for themselves to connect themselves to the community or to be a giver to the community? What steps do you suggest them?
I think, the way I kind of got my way to where I am now, and thankfully didn't take too many years, was I threw a lot of stuff at walls and I saw what stuck. And this is not what I actually recommend for anyone else, because you can get stuck throwing walls at things for many years and feel incredibly pained. I would say that being curious is the first thing. Informational interviews, calling people, networking. I feel like Facebook Messenger has become one of the more powerful tools for myself personally, because I look up friends on LinkedIn and then I go on to Messenger and I'm like, hey, let's chat. I think that being curious, asking the right questions, asking questions in general, and using networking events to do that is perfect, because I think people like talking, and the right kind of people also like mentoring. The next one I think is, to ask yourself a lot why it is you do what you do. I work in B2B high tech because I tell myself and I tell people who I interview these days that I enjoy working in sectors where people don't care about those kinds of technologies until those technologies break. So I work in cloud right now. Before I worked in network management, both cloud computing and network management, which covers wired and wireless networks, are things that people in general don't care about until they stop working and they can't access the internet or their files or anything. And so come up with your own value prop for why it is that you want to do anything in particular, and then go and execute. If you feel like you are not sure, go and get that job and test it out for 6 months to a year or more, and really, really work at it to understand what it is that you're good at, what it is that you're not so good at, and start your own projects on the side, and work that way as well, because having multiple things in the oven is always a really great way to get in touch and get in tune with what it is that you're interested in doing. And so it's really tough too, because there's a lot of new graduates who are about to leave higher education here in a couple of weeks and already have left, and a great many of them already know what they want to do with their life, or relatively speaking. But a lot more of them are walking and getting their graduation, their diploma, and in their gowns, and taking photos, and just thinking about how, as they take those photos, how they have no idea what's going to happen on Monday. And for a lot of them, they're going to sit at home, they're going to watch Netflix, they're going to try and not think about it. But in your youth, between the ages of like 22 and 27, 28 is the perfect time to experiment. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about it in a much more passionate way. And the way I say it is, especially in the Bay Area, contract jobs are a great way to start your career, because they give you that opportunity to test something out in sometimes a fixed amount of time, where you can make mistakes, where you can sort of understand what it is that's going on and learn along the way. And so, it's a tough world out there, and I think that as long as you remain curious and just go out and execute in whichever way that works, and network with people and have those conversations, you can get closer to what it is that you do want.
Those are really great points, and I think what you just said, it's packed with so much meaning too. The first thing you mentioned about asking the right questions, being curious, as well as What else? You said something like, taking on side projects. I think those were phenomenal because, when you work for a company, you are that one fish in that company. Sometimes if you're doing really well at your job, you become that big fish in a small pond. Until you start doing side projects and suddenly you have such a broad audience. It can be like a B2C market where you have to connect with consumers, and suddenly you're that small fish in a really big pond. And your success is dependent upon your ability to execute. I feel like taking on side projects has kept me very humble. Make me realize how, not that I'm incompetent, I'm competent in my own way. And I think that's the key. Whereas with my full-time client, I can be very competent just because they know me. And the same thing with contract job, very similar things. You have a very finite amount of time to make an immediate impact because you're not just wanting to learn from them. You also want this to potentially turn into a really great growth opportunity for yourself too. Right. And also, in order for you to learn anything, you really have to give first. So I think what you just said was packed with a lot of rich meaning. Now, how about benefits you've gotten out of giving? What are some of the benefits you've seen in the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I was laid off from my job in January of 2016. And I remember going home, after HR wheeled me out and everything, I got to work and, I started posting on Albert's List actually that very same Friday. And one of the things that was really touching was the fact that, after I had done what I had done for terms of helping people, giving people job opportunities. I remember one individual saying, sorry to hear that you've been laid off. I just started a job at this particular company. And if you see anything you like, send me an email, let me know. I want to help you and be there for you because you were there for me. And it was one of those really heartfelt moments, and it's like, I kind of give and do what I do here because I think it's actually a privilege to be able to enroll in somebody's job search. It's a privilege in general, I think, to enroll in the life of somebody else, especially when it's as vulnerable as the job search. And I take great joy in being able to watch people on my list succeed, connect, get jobs, meet other people, because I think that there's definitely that gap in networking. And I also think that, the benefits are when you see people who have been helped and they know that they've been helped, they're also willing to give back as well. And even people who are very new to the group. And on Albert's List, in specific, we emphasize culture a lot. We definitely do what we can to support people who join the community, and we encourage them to be vulnerable too. And so when you create this sort of vulnerability in a community, you encourage people to speak up, speak out, and talk about what it is that they need or what they had gone through, whether it's like a job layoff. I know a couple people this week actually posted that they either got ghosted at an interview or they were laid off really without no prior reason. And so my community comes to these people's help. They help them with lawyers. They help them connect with the right people. And so I don't think you can necessarily put a price tag on giving necessarily as much as it's an emotional benefit where people really learn like, I can give back. I can really discover what it is that folks are looking for. And we can change people's lives. I think that the best thing you can do for anyone is help them get closer to a job or a career goal, because ultimately that just funnels into everything else. And so I think that's actually one of the best things that you can give people.
Good. Yeah. Now, how about a mental shift then, as you mentioned, or even in the beginning of our conversation, how there's a gap in networking. People walk into a networking event hoping to get something out of it. What recommendations do you have for professionals of all ages? How can we begin to create that shift when we approach networking?
Yeah, so I think the first one is to approach networking as a conversation. I think a lot of us think that networking needs to be scripted, and it doesn't necessarily need to be. I think number two is knowing your value and knowing what it is that you can offer. I know for a lot of newer graduates, it's tough to fathom what you can offer when all you have is a degree in hand and you don't have any real world experience. But I think the real challenge is that, the world needs that. The world needs new, fresh ideas because we're just sick of listening to people twice our age come up with strategies that were relevant, 20 years ago. But, people who are 22, 23 have a lot to offer there. And so, I think everybody of all ages has something to offer, whether it's a connection, whether it's an insight, whether it's an idea, something creative. And then I think it's just going in with the right attitude. If you go into networking with the intention of helping somebody else out, and not helping yourself out, you get a lot more out of it because people in general, I think the default thought on networking is somebody's going to try and come and bother me today, and I just got to go and do this, and it's a chore. And the more you can make it not a chore for somebody, I think the more that people's mindsets will change as well. And I think finally, it's just choosing to focus and explore something deeply that can help you really with what it is that you want to do. So the closer you get to your industry of choice, your skill of choice, I think the opportunities expand as well because people start to discover that they can hang out with a specific kind of people and dive deeper. And so I would say, those are my 3 to 4 tips on how people can really master networking.
Sounds good. Now, how do people get a hold of you in the event they want to get some advice from you or maybe recent grads? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can go to my LinkedIn page and connect with me there or send me an email message. My LinkedIn is linkedin.com/in/Albert Qian. So that's all one word, ALBERTQIAN. And so, if you customize your LinkedIn request message when you first connect with me, it will also increase your odds of having me accept and lead to another conversation too. So as we discussed, customization, right? And listening to the context of how everything is around you. And so, that's really helpful too.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know it's
thank you so much for having me.
Right. We're approaching a 3-day weekend and here you are talking with me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm very happy to be here to share my insights and what I've learned over the last couple of years.
Great. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.